I want to welcome everybody to the MESILAT YESHARIM class. We're chapter 14, class number 2 and 14. And I'm very honored to have my very good old friends from Baltimore here.
Pleasure.
My neighbor. And this chapter of the MESILAT YESHARIM is a fascinating one. It's called about PERISHOOT. PERISHOOT means that one should not overly be indulgent. There's this clip from a Bukharian rabbi in Queens going viral that he brings a tshuva from Rav Moshe Feinstein that you're not supposed to have marijuana and do drugs. And a lot of people send it to me. A lot of my congregants from Santa Monica send it to me. But these are elementary things, my friend. Anything that could... I just want to bring out this idea because... oh my God, this is making me cry. But I've been a rabbi for 20 years now. God, it's really hard. Their faces come in front of me. I know 12 people in our community that overdosed between the age of 18 and 30. I mean, no, 18 and 50.
You mean they passed away because of it?
Yeah. I mean, you got to know, a rabbi, you could appreciate this as a CPA, confidentiality, but, we don't want to speak ill about the dead, but, sometimes, obviously, the family's going to tell people that, oh, he had a heart attack, this, that, but it's sad. See, you have to understand that there's a concept in Chazal, which is basically based on this MESILAT YESHARIM. There's a concept in Chazal, which is very fundamental to know as a Jew. Any Jew that doesn't know this could be killing himself, could be literally murdering himself, and that is kasha sakantam isura. What does it mean kasha sakantam isura? It's more dangerous and hard and difficult to deal with life-threatening danger than even sinning, which means like this: even if you do the worst possible sin, you could always do tshuva. But if you put your life in jeopardy when you take drugs, right? I don't know. Is your middle name Eliyahu Hanavi that you could resurrect the dead? Or like we're getting to Purim soon. There was a rabbi, they were eating with each other and then he whatever, I mean, once you've gone over the cliff,
that's it.
You're gone. And I once saw something about suicide. I want to say something here. A lot of my colleagues, my rabbinical colleagues, say I have guts. But one thing I learned from my Rosh Yeshiva Zatzal, Rav Weinberg, which was the most brilliant mind, Rosh Yeshiva Ner Israel Baltimore, and I learned from my other rabbi, Harav Eliezer ben David, which is the Mashgiach of Purat Yosef, and he built dozens of institutions for women around the world, and Kolalim in Mexico and Argentina. I'm willing to talk about some things that nobody else is willing to talk about, especially if life and death. Because this concept, I remember there was a time where Rav Weinberg, his son, went skiing and he almost died. He had to end up having 8 surgeries on his back. And the last 3 were done in Germany because they weren't FDA approved. So, risky behavior that could put your life in jeopardy is worse than sinning. So what this Bukharian rabbi, which Ashraf Ashrech Elkav brought out, such things, I mean, I don't know how much of a fool you could be to play with your life. But one of the 10 commandments is do not murder. And that includes yourself. And the Rambam says somebody that murders doesn't have a chelek l'olam haba. So you're dealing with your destiny. This is what the Ramchal is coming to. Now Ramchal is taking this. So what I just want to address this because it was current events, and the Ramchal is saying PERISHOOT means that I want to take it to the next level. I don't want to be in the same galaxy as sin. So he says, so this is a little bit controversial for people like us, but if you look in the Gra, he says the exact same thing, but even worse than this. It means like this. There are certain people that are letzanim. Now we're talking about Amalek. We're going to do Parashat Zachor literally in the next. There are certain people that have no respect for anything, no reverence for anything. I learned one thing from my Rabbi, one of the greatest Talmidei Chachamim in our generation. Is going to be one of the next Gedolei Hador of Tzvi Berkowitz Shlita. He always taught me one thing: respecting Torah is more important than Torah itself. And people that have no self-respect and no respect for any rabbis, no respect for, that's Amalek, by the way. That's the klipa of Amalek that we have to destroy on Purim, right? People that ridicule and everything is a joke for them, right? There's certain people, and if you read Tehillim number 1, which I would recommend everybody to do, Tehillim is the most marvelous of all books. I mean, David HaMelech, I want to tell you something else. If David HaMelech started Tehillim with Ashrei Ha'ish, Asher Lo Alach Ba'atzad Reshaim, Moshav Letzim, what is the first pasuk of Tehillim tell us? Don't sit with scoffers, with people that have no self-respect, respect for God, respect for Torah, because such things will lead to the most outrageous and disgusting possible conduct. The Ramchal here is saying just something very important, and that is, we should not associate with people that always are saying Lashon Hara, even if it's juicy. Which means, it says in the Gemara, in Chazal, Rabbi Lazar said, his colleagues, he did something seemed over the top. But you know what Rabbi Lazar said? My father used to say this. It was one of my father. When he saw this, it was such in line with his personality. He says, Mutav shehiyeh. It says it's better for me to look like a fool in front of my friends, but not in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even for 1 second. So התבודדות בה כראוי ותנאי שלא תיטה בזה אלא קצה אחר שכבר אמרו לעולם אל תהיה דעתו של העם. Okay, fine. So you have to understand that there's certain people you have to cut off out of your life. You know why? Because if every time you sit with these people, they make fun of rabbis, they make fun of life, they make fun of... To respect that, I want to bring you a proof, by the way, to this. Do you know how many people attended Rav Ovadia Yosef's funeral? Rav Chaim Kanievsky's? Yeah, Rav Chaim Kanievsky was also 750,000. How could every single yeshiva close? But don't we say that if there's 1 second without Torah in the world will be destroyed? So from here, the shir is not based on this, but I want to bring that out as part of the shir. Many places in Shas, you see this concept that there's, as important as learning Torah is, there's things above that. Like, for example, Meshamesh Talmidei Chachamim, to serve Talmidei Chachamim, pour water on their hand, bring them tea, be like their personal... Something that is head and shoulders even above the study of Torah, which we're doing together, and it's the greatest thing, is respecting Torah. You understand? So certain people that their energy level is... anytime you sit down with them, they either say Lashon Hara, because, inside of them, Habor Rek En Bo Mayim, inside of their mouth, their mind, and their heart, there's a spiritual vacuum. So we human beings, like the Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Soloveitchik said, if the mind doesn't have water in it, water is Torah. Our mind is a marvelous machine. If there's no Torah in it, what's going to be instead of in it? Junk. And some of the junk, Einstein always said, there's only a limit to genius, but there's no limit to foolishness. Einstein used to always say that. So you have to understand that, of course, so you'll have certain tzaddikim. Now, again, I want to reiterate this thing. The Ramchal, in this part of his book, is talking about Midat Chasidut. So you will have certain tzaddikim, I know personally, that don't go to any weddings. You know why?
Because there's someone might be just inappropriate.
Yeah. So is that halacha? No. Is that to be a tzaddik? Do you have to work like that? No. So even the Ramchal himself is worried that people may take this overboard. He says you should know. The Gemara in Ketubot also says, Leolam yeh dato shel adam mu'uravet beriot, which means sometimes this could consider Chil Hashem. Which means, let's say there's a certain tzaddik that is so paranoid and so worried that he doesn't want to say Lashon Hara. Somebody that's a new face in town, he says, oh, I'm not going to talk to him. I'm going to ignore him because I don't know who this guy is, if he's a kosher person or not. So if I become friends with this new person, he may do something inappropriate, Lashon Hara. And then, so he becomes like a hermit, right? That's not appropriate either. Because the Gemara says, in the end of the day, you need to be me'urev im haberiot. You know, the famous story, it's Rabbi Yisrael Salanter's yahrzeit actually, last night. My yeshiva's named after him. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, I'll just give you an example. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was just walking once, and, you know, somebody said hello to him. It was Erev Yom Kippur. The guy didn't answer him. It's sad that we have people that daven for an hour a day. Their Shemona Esrei takes 20 minutes, but they don't have common derech eretz. So we saw Salanter, as the founder of the Musar movement, grabbed him. In Farsi, we say Cheresh Gereft. He took him, and he said, listen, I told you shalom. Common decency is what?
Say it back.
Say it back. So he said, oh, I'm sorry, Rebbe. And, you know, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was such a gadol ador that I just saw an article in one of these Torah journals. Even the Hasidim would call him Harav HaChasid. He was such a... So I'm saying, even though you had a problem of misnagdim versus... He was universally known as a tremendous... He said, listen, that's between you and God. But just because you're... So he said, Rebbe, I was afraid I may die on Yom Kippur, right? We don't know, the books of life and death are open. He said, that's between you and God. That doesn't give you a green card to not have common decency. So same thing here. As much as some certain Hasidim may have this extreme caution that they don't want to do letzanut, they don't want to do scoffers and don't think, but because it says like Cherav al abadim, Talmidei Chachamim, they don't even trust other Talmidei Chachamim and don't discuss their Torah issues with a colleague, peer review, they deserve their heads to be chopped off. So there is a certain amount of isolation that is very appropriate with people that you know or potentially know that group is people that don't have any self-respect or respect for Torah and God. It's appropriate to stay a mile away from them. But to have this paranoia that anybody and everybody has to be like that, and then you don't say hello to anybody, and you know, that's not appropriate. It says, he says, it's very good to have kosher friends. I don't want to brag, but this week I hanged out with one of the Rebbes of Yerushalayim, the Makshe Muna Rebbe. I was with him a lot. And which means the issue is this. Unfortunately, I know, again, my wife tells me I know too many people in this world. I know certain people that they never got married because they're socially awkward, and these people need to get therapy with a professional psychologist that's also a rabbi. So you always have to know the biggest Sephardic rabbi in the world is Rabbi Yitzhak Yosef and Rabbi Yaakov Hillel. And Rabbi Yaakov Hillel, my brother-in-law, Rabbi Yehuda Moradia, and your friend, he has a very close relationship with Rabbi Yaakov Hillel. And I want to tell you one thing. It's very important to be normal, right? When you start, there's so many people that have been the greatest tzaddikim in the history of mankind, but they didn't act normal and their kids went off the derech. So the Ramchal is actually warning this. He says, even if you want to be a parush and a hasid and everything, you shouldn't do it okay. Doesn't mean have no friends, have the right friends, right? Right? This is the Rambam says in Hilchot Deot. There's nothing wrong with having friends. Yeah, friends that are going to take you to bad places and do drugs and, you know, say Lashon Hara and watch movies together or, you know, watch Netflix together, which inappropriate stuff. Those are for, you know, and it says, he says you could be a perfectly yashar servant of God and have very good friends and employ them. You know, I just wanted to also bring this out because the next year is going to be on Parashat Mishpatim, Ela Mishpatim Tasim Lifnehem. And we're going to have a shiur on the fourth chelik of Choshen Mishpat, which Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says the biggest mistake, chas v'sholom, not to disrespect Rabbi Yosef Karo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, but he said the big mistake is that he made it 4 divisions. And people think they only need to learn Orach Chaim, they don't learn the laws of business, which is, me and my cousin know, when we know too many people, once it comes to money, it's like God doesn't exist, ethics doesn't exist. You lend them money, but they think it's a mitzvah not to pay it back. Instead of, So, Ravi, the idea here is that a business law of Torah, a civil law of Torah will tell you it's always better if you have a job to hire a Jew. Because you have to first who takes precedence, Jew or non-Jew? Your brother. So the Ramchal is also saying that also. He's saying if you want to hire an employee, why not hire a tzaddik as an employee? And he says, so he says appropriate chassidut and perishut is not to talk too much, because I've seen this, I don't want to say a million times, but we've seen this countless times, that once a conversation gets too long, inevitably, automatically it leads to lashon hara. So appropriate perishut is keep it short and sweet. Divrei chachamim b'derech ketzara nishma'im. Like they say, the Hasidim say, like Boaz said, Omer lekotzrim Hashem imachem. People that are short and sweet, Hashem, God is with you. It's like a Hasidic part. And he says, this is Rabbi Netaneli, our great Kabbalist of LA, always says that, yes, especially now, where people are half naked, and unfortunately in LA, where the weather is always good, he said it would be appropriate perishut and chassidut to only look within your 4 amot, right? Because sometimes when you look, especially with all these disgusting and despicable billboards, it's going to stain your soul. So he says the Ramchal says, don't think I enumerated all the different ways of being a parush, to be abstinence. The wise person, the person that fears God and has to be, you could always add, Yosif Chacham, a Chacham could always add, but again, we have to be very careful that when we do this stuff, we should not make Chilul Hashem and be inappropriate. And especially now, I just saw an article from the Aguda, the New York Times was attacking Hasidic Jews. They made like 10 different articles in the last year attacking Haredi Jews in America and Hasidic, that they're not normal. I would venture to say that even if you want to be the greatest Hasid and Parush, you should go out of your way to always say hi to the Goyim and always have Derech Eretz. Because Derech Eretz Kadman LeTorah, I don't care. Rav Yaakov Hillel actually spoke in Ner Israel. He was there a couple of months ago. He said, I don't care if you know as much Torah as Rav Avadia Yosef. If you don't have midot, if you don't have decency, you don't have Derech Eretz, all your Torah is worthless. So this has to be a golden rule, and Hashem should always help us to do that. Amen.